I work at my mother's wedding shop. I started during college and stayed after graduation while planning my next career move. I handle cleaning, washing up, and making drinks for clients. Being a guy, I rarely go into the fitting room area. The meeting room and tea area are downstairs, while the dresses and fitting rooms are upstairs. We don't allow food or drinks upstairs because expensive white wedding dresses don't mix with coffee stains. We had an appointment with a bride who booked online. I hadn't met her before, but from her messages, I could tell her mother wasn't easy to deal with. When they arrived, the bride and her bridesmaid were excited and nervous. The mother looked like she'd stepped into a trash dump, scanning our shop with disgust. Her bob haircut barely fit through the door frame with how high she held her head. I greeted them and offered drinks and snacks. The bride and bridesmaid responded nicely, asking for tea with milk and coffee with cream. The mother ordered black coffee without sugar. She didn't say please or thank you and didn't look at me. In the tea room, my mother showed them our catalog. The bride pointed excitedly at designs while her mother kept talking about prices. She said prices must be negotiable, complained about charging so much for fabric, and said they needed a discount. After discussing styles, my mother suggested they go upstairs to try dresses. When they got up, I reminded them about our no drinks policy. The bride and bridesmaid set their cups down, but the mother held her mug tighter. She asked who I thought I was, called me just staff, and said she would finish her drink where she wanted. I told her it was store policy to protect dresses from spills. She told me to shut up and show respect to my elders before walking past me up the stairs. I stayed downstairs. I'm 6 feet 4 with a broad build from rugby, and being talked down to by a woman who barely reached my shoulders was new to me. About 20 minutes later, I heard shouting from upstairs. My mother told me later that the mother criticized every dress, focusing only on prices. When the bride found a silk gown with lace that she loved, her mother told her to take off the ridiculous dress. When the bride said she loved it, her mother asked about the price. When told it cost £2,200, the mother said we were trying to rob them. She stood up to check the fabric and prove it was overpriced. She tripped over the dress train and spilled her coffee down the white gown. I ran upstairs after hearing the crash and screams. The mother was on the floor, her face bright red. The bride and bridesmaid stood frozen, looking at the coffee-stained dress. My mother looked ready to kill someone. The mother blamed us for making her trip and said she'd had knee surgery. She threatened to call her lawyer. She got up and said they were leaving and keeping the ruined dress. My mother was too shocked to speak. The bride told her mother they couldn't just keep it. The mother said they could because we had no use for it now. When they tried to leave, the mother saw me blocking the doorway. She told me to move, called me a jerk, and blamed me for making the coffee. She tried to push past me and grab my arm. After struggling and not being able to move me, she realized she couldn't get by. I told her to sit down and pay for cleaning the dress, or we would call police. She refused and asked who I thought I was. She threatened me if I didn't get out of her way. She was still holding her crying daughter's hand. I asked her to let go of her daughter and sit down. She slapped me across the face. She called me boy and said her baby was going to have the wedding of her dreams, and she wouldn't let me get in the way. When she tried to hit me again, I caught her wrist and pushed her back. My mother had called the police, who arrived quickly since the station was nearby. When the officers came, the mother accused me of assault and demanded I be arrested. After taking statements and reviewing our security footage, they arrested her. She had a history of similar behavior at other wedding venues. She got 3 months jail time and had to pay for cleaning the dress. We gave the bride a big discount. She was grateful and invited us to her wedding 9 months later at a seaside venue. The ceremony was on a glass platform overlooking the ocean, without her mother there. The dress, after cleaning, looked great, and we made sure no drinks were near it during the ceremony. I ended up living in an apartment with 3 other people at 32. After losing my job at the tech company where I'd worked for 8 years and going through a breakup in the same month, I found myself in a support group for people dealing with major life transitions. That's where I met my current roommates. We hit it off right away, sharing similar worldviews and dark humor. My roommate, who I'll call my partner for clarity, and I started dating shortly after meeting. We both started working at the same restaurant on the same day, hired by her best friend, who also lives with us. The fourth person in our apartment is the subject of this story, the entitled roommate from hell. When my partner and I started dating, her best friend and the entitled roommate also began a relationship. At first, everything seemed fine. I had just left a painful relationship and spent most of my free time at my partner's and her best friend's place to avoid being alone. I was spending so much time there that they eventually asked me to contribute to bills, which made sense. I agreed and officially moved in. As months passed, something felt off. The atmosphere in the apartment grew tense. At first, I blamed myself. Maybe I was still recovering from my previous breakup, or perhaps it was the herbal supplements I was taking for my anxiety. But deep down, I knew something else was wrong. The entitled roommate and the best friend would fight constantly, their arguments disrupting our lives without any consideration for anyone else. They'd scream at each other at all hours, making it impossible to sleep or relax. One day, my partner and I noticed our dog acting strangely. He was limping and seemed afraid. After watching the entitled roommate's behavior around our dog, I became convinced he was mistreating our pet when no one was looking. I approached the best friend with my concerns. I told her that I thought her boyfriend might be hurting our dog when we weren't around. I admitted I didn't have solid proof but explained that something was wrong. She got defensive and insisted he would never do anything like that. She accused me of just looking for reasons to dislike him. The fighting between them eventually decreased, but their relationship became openly toxic. They would speak to each other in ways that made everyone uncomfortable. One weekend, my 11-year-old child was staying with us, sleeping in the living room because our apartment was small. My child overheard them arguing. She asked me who was yelling in that room. I explained it was just the best friend's boyfriend. My child commented that he sounded really mean to her. I awkwardly explained that was how they talked to each other. Every month, for 3 consecutive months, I found myself telling my partner I wasn't happy living there anymore. She was always supportive. She told me that if living there was making me miserable, she wouldn't stop me from leaving because she cared about my happiness. Meanwhile, my partner had been trying to help her best friend see the truth. She would tell her friend that she shouldn't let her boyfriend cheat on her. She also pointed out how abnormal it was that he fought with our dog for her attention. But the best friend pushed away anyone who criticized her relationship, friends, family, everyone. 3 days ago, the entitled roommate showed up unannounced as usual to wait around our apartment all day for the best friend to get off work. He was eating our food, making a mess, and not cleaning up after himself. I'd had enough. I told my partner that if he was going to be here 5 days a week, he needed to start paying bills. My partner texted the best friend our new rental agreement. Our actual plan was to have the best friend pay 50%, my partner pay 50%, and I would cover half of my partner's share. We just wanted the entitled roommate to contribute something. When the best friend told the entitled roommate about the new arrangement, he exploded. He came into the apartment, screaming. He yelled that he didn't have to pay anything because it wasn't even his place and we couldn't make him do anything. I replied that if he was living here half the week, using our utilities and eating our food, he needed to contribute. He responded by hurling insults, saying I was just jealous because I was a loser who couldn't hold down a job. I remained calm, which only made him angrier. I knew from witnessing their fights that when the best friend would ask him to leave during arguments, he would refuse and become more aggressive until she gave in. I decided to use this knowledge. I told him to get out of my house. He screamed, asking what I had said to him. I repeated myself, telling him to get out and that he was no longer welcome here. He threw a punch at me, which I blocked with my elbow. I kept blocking his attacks while backing up until we were outside. My partner had already called the police. After his third failed attempt to hit me, he shoved my partner. I warned him that the police were on their way and reminded him that he had outstanding warrants. I suggested he might want to think about what he was doing. He started walking away, and I followed him to the edge of the property to make sure he left. When the police arrived, they took our statements. I explained that I just wanted him gone, but the officers had other ideas. They said they weren't letting this freeloading troublemaker get away with assault. They searched his name and found 8 separate warrants for similar domestic incidents. I provided his likely location. The next day, we got a call from the police. They had arrested him on the warrants and charged him with 3 counts of assault from our incident. It turned out that his ex had filed for sole custody of their child the day before, and Child Protective Services had gotten involved. The best friend tried to help him by bringing his family to stay at our apartment, interfering with the Child Protective Services investigation. We took a copy of the police report to our landlord when paying rent. Our landlord agreed with us, saying that he wasn't allowed on any of his properties, restraining order or not. We served the entitled roommate with 2 separate restraining orders while he was in jail. We included protection for our dog and the best friend's workplace. The judge told us that anyone acting on his behalf would also be violating the restraining order. We told his mother, who was still hanging around, that she had already spent time in prison for interfering with a Child Protective Services investigation before and suggested she leave. The toxic presence that had been poisoning our home is gone, and for the first time in months, I can sleep peacefully. We hold all the cards now, and it feels good after months of walking on eggshells in my own home. I was a bit of a tomboy growing up. My parents never forced me into stereotypical girly things, and I developed my own style. By my 20s, I had a look I felt comfortable with. Long hair on top with an undercut beneath. It was perfect. Professional for my office job when worn down, but edgy when tied up. Finding a good barber who could maintain my undercut was tricky. The salon I went to charged too much for what was a simple trim with clippers. One day, I tried the local barber shop near my apartment. I was nervous walking in, wondering if they'd turn me away. But they didn't. The staff were amazing, skilled, friendly, and they charged a third of what the salon did. I became a regular, stopping by every few weeks for a trim. The place was always relaxed, with banter between barbers and clients, sports on the TV, and the smell of aftershave. Last Tuesday, I went for my regular trim. The shop was quiet, just one other customer getting a haircut and 2 barbers working. I sat down in the empty chair and greeted my usual barber. I asked him for my usual touch-up on the undercut, a number 2 on the sides and back. My barber told me it wouldn't be a problem and asked how I'd been. We chatted as he draped the cape around me and started with his clippers. That's when I noticed the other customer looking at me in the mirror. He was probably in his 50s with a traditional short back and sides haircut. He kept looking over, frowning. Then he turned to his barber and asked why I was there. His barber looked uncomfortable but told him I was getting my undercut maintained and that they do haircuts for everyone. The man scoffed loudly. He said he doesn't like undercuts on women and thinks they're ugly. He added that women should have feminine haircuts. He said this loudly enough that I could hear it clearly. The shop went quiet except for the buzz of the clippers. My barber paused for a second before continuing with my cut. I was stunned. Here I was minding my own business, and this stranger felt entitled to give his opinion about my appearance, as if I wondered what random middle-aged men might think of my hairstyle. His barber tried to change the subject by asking about a game from the night before, but the man wasn't finished. The customer said that in his day women looked like women, and complained that now everyone wants to look the same, which he found confusing. I caught my barber's eye in the mirror. He gave me an apologetic look. I could have told this guy where to shove his outdated opinions, but it wasn't worth my energy. This wasn't the first time someone had commented on my appearance. My barber finished up and showed me the back was a mirror. I told him it looked perfect. I stood up, took off the cape, and walked to the register to pay. As I was handing over my money, the other customer spoke again. He told me that I'd be prettier with proper long hair. That was it. I turned around. I told him that I hadn't asked for his opinion and didn't care what he found attractive. My haircut wasn't for him. The shop went silent. His barber froze, clippers in hand. My barber tried to hide a smile. The customer said he was just trying to help and I was being too sensitive. I replied that I was just trying to get a haircut without commentary from strangers, and it was weird how we both didn't get what we wanted today. I turned back to the register, paid, and added a tip. I thanked the barbers and said I'd see them in a few weeks. As I left, I heard the other barber telling the man that they respect all their customers and asked him to do the same if he wanted to keep coming there. Walking home, I felt annoyed that the encounter happened, but proud that I'd stood up for myself. When I got home, I took a selfie with my freshly trimmed undercut and posted it online with a caption, "For me, not you." The next time I went back, the staff were extra welcoming. My barber told me that the other customer had been asked not to return after making several other customers uncomfortable. He also said my haircut looked great, and it did, because it was mine and nobody else's opinion mattered. I collected many stories from my years working retail, and this one still makes my blood boil when I think about it. I worked as a supervisor at a local grocery chain with unpredictable shifts. During this time, our store was changing uniforms. While waiting for new ones, employees could wear plain shirts in white, dark gray, navy blue, or robin egg blue with no writing. Pants had to be khaki or black. We all wore large name badges with our names, company logo, and position titles. Managers and supervisors like me wore red. One day I finished a double shift, 14 hours from 10 p.m. until 2 p.m. the next day. I was tired but needed groceries before going home. My mom came to help me shop so it wouldn't take long. She had recent double knee replacement surgery and needed an electric mobility cart. She wore a blue jean jacket over a white shirt, nothing like our store uniform. I had clocked out with my name badge in my pocket and was in an aisle when I heard shouting. I went to look and found a middle-aged man screaming at my mother, who was in her mobility cart crying. I got between them and asked what was happening. The man turned to me. He said my mother was a lazy employee riding in a cart meant for elderly customers. He told her to get out of the cart and do her job or be fired. He asked where the manager was. My mom and I don't always get along, but my protective side took over. I pointed to the walker on her cart. I told the man this was a customer who needed the cart for medical reasons. I said she didn't work here, but I did. I put my badge back on so he could see my title. I told him to leave. I said I wouldn't let him harass customers in my store. I told him to leave his alcohol and go. At work, I was known for being calm, but I didn't back down when pushed. I'd stood up to customers who threatened my staff before. The security team must have noticed I was ready to remove him myself. They moved in to escort him out and waited until he left the parking lot. The man protested. He said he was a paying customer and wanted to speak to the manager. I repeated that he needed to leave and security would show him out. The security guard told him it was time to go. The man kept complaining as they took him out. He said he would never shop here again. I said that worked for me. After he left, I turned to my mom, who was upset. I asked if she was okay. She told me she tried to tell him she didn't work there, but he wouldn't listen and kept yelling. I told her not to worry and we should finish shopping so we could go home. She thanked me for stepping in and said she didn't know what to do. I told her nobody talks to her like that, not even me. She smiled a little through her tears. I got in trouble later. The manager called me to the office the next day. The manager said I couldn't kick out customers while off the clock, and I needed to talk to the manager on duty first. I asked if they would have preferred I let him verbally abuse my mother, who just had knee surgery. The manager said they understood why I did it, but asked me to follow protocol next time. I said if it happened again, I would do the same thing. Was the reprimand worth it? Yes, I'd do it again. That guy never returned to our store during my shifts, and my mom and I had a rare moment of connection. For someone who doesn't always get along with their parent, it felt good to be the protector.